Hey folks, it's Rowdy Ron here, vlog number 3. As I promised you, I've been sidetracked by some other stuff and got to have some fun with that other stuff. If you don't know what stuff I'm talking about, go check out my other videos. This is vlog number 3, as I mentioned, my video log, my diary, I guess you could say. Answering a bunch of questions that people had sent me, comments regarding my pro wrestling career and my career in radio and, of course, stand-up comedy, which I'll get to on another video. Right now I'm going to talk about my radio and my wrestling career as I went from, if you remember correctly, if not, go back to video number 2, of me going from Cleveland, Ohio down to Cincinnati, Ohio, Hamilton, Ohio to be exact, and this was around 1992, mid-1992 I believe it was. And I started at a radio station called 1450 WMOH. It was an AM station. And you got to remember, I just came from an FM station, which was, all music, with, a couple of interaction with whatever you could do with the people that you had, callers, whatever you want to call it. But basically, it was just mostly music. That was the entertainment. You go on the AM side of radio, you are the entertainment more times than not if you have your own show. Well, I started at this station. And I was actually the youngest guy they had there, filled with energy. I came there just, ready to kick in the doors and take over, basically. The program director loved it. He loved the energy level. He loved the fact that I was professional, yet, humorous, and that people enjoyed me. And I got to do a lot of commercial work first. I was mostly used when I first got there. I was mostly used for board operating, doing satellite-fed programs like sports. They didn't have Cincinnati Bengals. It was Cincinnati, Ohio, but the Cincinnati Bengal games was being played on a bigger station. We actually, unfortunately, got Cleveland Browns games. And that was real exciting when I got to do those, but not a big Browns fan, folks. Sorry about that. So anyways, as I was doing this, I was like, I'm listening to these sports station feeds that we're getting from other parts of the country, and I'm like, man, I could do this. This seems like a fairly easy thing I could do, and I wanted to experiment with it. So I picked up on the one thing I knew a lot about at the time, and that was prostitution. No, I'm kidding. It was actually pro wrestling, and I decided, why not just make a pro wrestling talk show? And this is before internet, before there was any other pro wrestling talk shows out there. In fact, at the time, there was Mike Tenay, who now works for TNA, and he also worked for WCW. He had a sports talk show for wrestling in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I think there was another one out of either Philadelphia or New York at the time, and then there was me. I swear I cannot think if anybody else knows of any others at the time. Again, this is mid-1992. Let me know. But those are the only 3 I could think of at the time. I broke into doing this in between shows, like I think it was between high school football and NASCAR. NASCAR was like the hottest thing this station had, and then eventually I became the number 2, unfortunately, but I could never surpass NASCAR when it came to ratings time. We tried it out as an experiment for 1 hour, and just to see what kind of response we'd get, if anything, from listeners. And it took me a couple of weeks to actually develop any kind of listenership, only by doing it, in between shows, and only for 1 hour. Eventually, I took it to my boss, Kurt Radel. He was my program director at the time. I recorded all my shows, and I said, let's pick up and run with this. Give me some more time. He gave me, it was either a late night Friday night or Saturday night. I think it was Friday night that I started on, like 10 o'clock in the morning. And he said, go ahead and have some fun. There was nothing else on, basically. It was either that or satellite feed. And he liked the idea of, let's see if we can get some local interaction with our listeners. And the cool thing about it was, we had our radio station connected to the local advertising channel on cable TV. So if you couldn't pick up our radio station locally, you could pick us up through cable TV. And that's how a lot of my listeners actually happened to come about. Is I got way out in Cincinnati. This was a small station, so it was in Butler County, and I can't remember the wattage of the station, but it only got out so far. And when we got to the cable station on the advertising station there, we branched out all over Cincinnati, so it was great. I was getting calls from all over the place. And what I was doing is, at the time, just basically going over pay-per-view results, TV results, having people call in, ask questions about wrestlers that maybe I had known, people that I had worked with in the business, asking me questions about the business, how they could get in the business, what I thought about, a certain pay-per-view, what my predictions were, things like that. this turned into a Friday night and Saturday night deal eventually. We'd go from 10 p.m. Sometimes to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and the listeners, the phone lines would light up, and it was so hot that I actually had my own producer there, and it was great. His name is Jim Bradfish, and Jim, if you're out there watching, call me, you owe me money. But he was great, and he would interact. We would do funny commercials. We would make up commercials. I would get Pepsi, would be a big sponsorship for me. The local bowling alley, the guy that owned it, was a big fan of mine. There was an auto parts store. They were big fans of mine as well. They love pro wrestling. They love my show. They love the concept. And everybody loves to be heard on the radio, or at least most people do. So I would put these people on the radio. They would love to hear their voice. And it was a great conversation because it wasn't just about pro wrestling. It was about entertainment itself and like I said, my experience. And every now and then I would call up the wrestlers that I knew, like Greg the Hammer Valentine, Tommy Rich I had on there, B. Brian Blair I had on there, the late, great Brian Pillman. A lot of wrestlers that I had worked with in the past up in Cleveland, I would put on the radio. And then eventually what happened is not only did I have my 2 radio shows with wrestling, my 1-year anniversary at the radio station, they sponsored a pro wrestling show for my 1-year anniversary. I got to bring in whoever I wanted. They were going to flip the bill. We actually had 4 radio stations there, 2 TV stations that covered it for their 11 o'clock news, and the local newspaper was there, and what it was a fundraiser for Hamilton High football team to build their stadium. And it was a great cause, and we had actually over 1,200 people show up, and we made the 11 o'clock news. We made the front page of the sports section for the Sunday paper. It was a Saturday night show. We had Ronnie Garvin versus Greg the Hammer Valentine. Had a guy named Preston Steele. Kamala the Ugandan Giant was there. Of course, I was there. Psycho Mike was there. Medusa Michelli, who at the time had just signed on with the WWF at the time, and she was actually dating Greg the Hammer Valentine. So we got kind of a great package, bringing Greg Valentine in. He brought in Medusa. We had Candy Divine there, and it was a fantastic show. It was the best show, the biggest show that I had to be a part of at that time. And of course, that would be surpassed when I moved to Kentucky and worked for Ohio Valley Wrestling, which I will talk about in my next video. But that's the main bits and pieces of my pro wrestling career there in Cincinnati, and of course my radio career. And in 1995, I moved to Louisville, Kentucky, which is where I am now. Yeehaw! And I took up cow tipping. You gotta tip cows, folks. They give you good service. You gotta tip them. You know, the last one I think I did was at Denny's. Okay, but anyways, check back to my videos. I will get you some more information about my time with OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling, and that alone is probably going to take a couple videos, because have I got some stories to tell you. Thank you for your questions and comments. Leave them if you like, and of course, thank you for viewing. See you later.